How to probate out-of-state rental properties when your parents pass away. We had someone whose parents set up a trust, they set up a will. With the trust, they forgot to transfer the properties into the trust, and they lost their original will. So the properties are having to be split up per the intestate laws. And so this is going to walk through the exact steps that probate will have to take to actually transfer the properties from out-of-state to in-state. This guide's going to take you everything from starting the probate process to transfer the properties from out-of-state all the way to distributing the assets out to the beneficiaries. The steps that they're going to have to take is open up the probate process in Georgia, then open up ancillary probate in Ohio and Michigan where those rental properties are located. Then they're going to need to secure all of the rental properties and notify the tenants that their parents have passed away. They'll need to reach out to the mortgage and the insurance companies, update the policies and the accounts, and start making payments out of the estate bank account to those companies. They need to collect rents from the tenants and start making repairs on those properties as needed. They'll have to track all income and expenses, pay debts, and pay taxes on those properties. If they need to sell those properties, they'll have to get court permission to be able to do so. Then they will distribute the remaining money or assets out to the beneficiaries and then file the final accounting along with a petition to discharge them as the administrator of the estate, and then the probate process will be complete. The first step is actually understanding what is going to go through the probate process. So their parents created a trust and they named those properties on the trust with the intent for those properties to avoid the probate process and go directly down to their kids when they passed away. The problem is that even though they created the trust and named the properties inside of it, they did not use a quitclaim deed or a warranty deed to actually transfer the property out of their name into the name of the trust. So the trust did not actually hold those properties. Therefore, those properties have to go through the probate process. The good thing is that they created a will that would account for any of their assets that have to go through the probate process to outline how they want those properties to be distributed. The problem is going to be that they lost their original will because their mom got dementia and forgot where they put it. Because their mom got dementia and forgot where she put it and never told anyone where that will was. So these rental properties will have to get distributed per the intestate laws of the state. So step 2 is going to be determining who's actually going to be inheriting these properties. As an example, in Georgia, your assets will get split evenly between your spouse and your kids, with your spouse getting a minimum of 1/3. And then if your parents did not have a spouse that survived them, then all the assets will get split evenly between the kids. Now, this rule applies regardless of what the trust or the will said, because the properties were not inside the trust and then the will was lost. Step 3 is going to be opening up the probate process in the county where your parents live. So what they're going to have to do is get the death certificates, a list of all the properties, a list of all the heirs, and then file a petition for the letters of administration so that they can become the administrator of the estate. Once the courts review all of these documents, they will open up the probate process and give the individual the letters of administration, which gives them the authority to manage the assets inside of the estate. So the first thing they need to do is take over the management of the rental properties immediately. They will need to get an EIN number for the estate and then open up an estate bank account and then transfer all financial accounts into the estate bank account so all the money is in one location. Then they will go to the tenants, notify them that their parents have passed away, and to start making payments to the estate instead of their parents. And then as the administrator of their estate, it would be their responsibility to deposit that money into the estate bank account. Then they will use the money inside the estate bank account to start managing those properties. They'll pay expenses out of there, things like the mortgage, insurance, utilities, etc. And all the rental income will go into that estate bank account. Step 6 is going to be continuing to make your mortgage and your insurance payments. So you need to reach out to both of these institutions, let them know that your parents have passed away, give them the death certificate and the letters of administration. This will show them that you have the authority to manage the assets inside the estate, and you'll let the mortgage company know that you need to take over the mortgage payments for that property and that you will make payments out of the estate bank account. With your insurance, you need to get a new insurance policy that will cover the estate owning that property, because the original policy covers your parents owning that rental property, but now that they have passed away, that policy is no longer valid. You'll have to get one that covers the estate owning that policy. The reason being is that if you do not do this, the insurance company has the right to not pay out any claims on that property that are filed during the probate process. Step 7 is continuing to manage the tenants and the rental operations. The administrator of the estate is going to act as the temporary landlord until those properties get distributed out to the beneficiaries and they take over the ownership of them. It's going to be the administrator's responsibility to collect rent, deposit that into the estate bank account, handle any repairs, emergencies, or upkeeps for those rental properties, issue notices to vacate or evict those tenants if they are not making payments to the estate, and then deal with unit turnovers, the renovations, repairs, etc. associated with those turnovers. And if you're going to sell those rental properties, it'll be your responsibility to make sure that they are ready to be sold. Step 8 is going to be tracking your income, your expenses, and the repairs that you have made. You need to make sure that you are keeping the proper and clean accounting for this whole process, because you have to file the final accounting with the probate courts at the end of the probate probate process. Things that you need to keep up with is the rental income that comes in, the expenses that you pay going out, whether that's mortgage payments, utilities, taxes, repairs, maintenance, capital expenses, etc. Step 9 is going to be handling renovations, vacancies, and sales. Now, as the administrator, you can clean, repair, or prep the properties for sale or unit turnover. But you cannot sell anything without court approval first. To sell the property, you have to get a petition for leave to sell the real estate. And this will be the courts approving you to sell that real estate. And this will give you the approval of the courts to sell that real estate. That way you can actually list that property for sale and go through with selling it to take the distribution of those proceeds and pay off any debts or make the distributions out to the beneficiaries. Step 10 is going to be paying off debts and settling taxes. So when you file the petition for probate, at the same time, you'll do a public notification to creditors that your parents have passed away. The courts will generally handle this for you, but how it's going to work is you'll do a public notice in the local newspaper in the county where your parents live once a week for a 4-week period. This gives the creditors a notice that your parents have passed away, and then they have a 3-month window that they are able to come back and let you know that there are debts that are owed to them. You'll have to use money inside the estate to pay off these debts. If there's not enough money inside the estate to pay these debts off, you'll have to start selling off of rental properties to generate cash to be able to pay these debts off. Step 11 is going to be distributing the assets out to the beneficiaries per the intestate laws. Now here's where it gets tricky because you're dealing with rental properties that typically have different amounts of equity inside of them that you're going to be distributing out to those beneficiaries. Now we have a couple different options that we can take here. If no one wants the real estate, then they can sell that real estate, take the cash, and then distribute the cash out to the beneficiaries. That's a much cleaner route to take on the back end because you can do an even split of the cash between the beneficiaries. Now let's say that they don't want to sell that real estate and that you have to distribute the properties out to the beneficiaries. What you'll be required to do is equalize the equity between them. So what that means is that someone is going to have to buy out the other individual. So let's say that one piece of property has $50,000 of equity while another property has $100,000 of equity. If you're giving one property to one beneficiary and another property to another beneficiary, obviously there's a $50,000 discrepancy there. So you'll split that $50,000 discrepancy because you're splitting it between the beneficiaries, and then the beneficiary that gets the property with more equity will have to pay off $25,000 of debt that is owed to the other beneficiary to make up for that difference in equity. Step 12 is going to be closing out the estate. So what you're going to do here is file the final accounting. So this is why I told you in the beginning to make sure that you're keeping a clean documentation of all the expenses and income being generated by the estate. You'll take the final accounting along with a petition to discharge you as the administrator of the estate. You'll file those documents and records with the probate courts in the county where your parents lived. The courts will review it, approve it, and then close out the probate process, and you will be done. As you can tell, probating real estate when you have out-of-state properties can be a very complex process. So if you want help probating your rental properties, click link in the bio, fill out the form, and schedule a time to talk to some on our team.